The biggest game in Jaguars history. That is what the coaches are saying. That is what your VP is saying, your GM for your favorite team. If you listen to this podcast right now, this is the biggest game in Jags history entering week 14. Now, is it all coach speak? Is it actual a reality? As a fan, no. We've had bigger games in our franchise history, right? Playoff performances, playoff wins, playoff games, AFC championship games as well. But the one thing that I've learned to appreciate about this regime is taking it one game at a time and reiterating to the players, the coaches, and the facility that you must go 1-0 every week. In each game you play, whoever's in front of you next, no matter if it's the 1-win Titans or the 8-win battle for the AFC South crown Colts, 1 week at a time. And of course, that is the biggest game in Jags history. Welcome back to another episode of the Chill Taste Podcast. I'm your host, Darian. Man, I've been gone. I know. I've been dealing with some family stuff, a bit of laziness, recording, work. But I was supposed to put out a podcast last week before we took the field versus Titans. And I was scattering around in my personal life because on Thanksgiving Day during the Turkey Bowl with my friends, back home, my brother, who hasn't played football in probably quite some time, he's younger than me, by the way, but he broke his kneecap. So on the day of festivities and whatnot, my brother went down, man. I had to go to urgent care and pretty much spend my whole off day at the hospital. He's doing better, can't walk, pretty much handicapped right now, but he's healthy. And he'll bounce back, right? But it's kind of like stopped my world for a second. So now that I have some time, I can finally pod. And since then, the Jaguars, of course, have won again. And I think I haven't posted a podcast entirely since post Chargers game. We went on the Cardinals. Trevor had that Trevor Lawrence experience, right? Bounced back after throwing 3 interceptions, threw 3 touchdowns. Then the following week versus the Titans, responded playing arguably his best game of the season. And at one point was having one of his better games of his career before, the game got a bit sloppy with penalties and so on and so forth. But now we move towards the biggest game of his career, the biggest game in Jaguars history, going up against the Colts, who now sit at 8-4 after a very, very strong start to the season, making all these blockbuster trades. Well, not all, but one huge blockbuster trade, trading for Sauce Gardner, who won't even play in this game and more than likely will miss the remainder of the season because he is dealing with a calf strain. And yes, that's very important, man, because they also have some other injuries in their defensive back room. I think Kenny Moore is dealing with some issues right now, but he should be suiting up this Sunday. There was no DeForest Buckner either, so the Colts are entering this game a bit banged up. So are we. But before we talk about the enemy, all right, let's talk about these Jags, right? What's at stake? I have my notes written down right here. What's at stake for this game versus Indy? You gain head-to-head, of course, against the 2 seed in the AFC South. And then you have the Texans, of course, who are gaining steam, gaining control of this wild card berth as we speak. They're currently the other hot team in the AFC right now, and they're being led by their strong and potent defense, who stats-wise is arguably, if not, I'm sorry, not stats, not arguably, but they are the best defense in football according to defensive metrics. So that's what we have to worry about right now, right? A lot on the line. You win, you can breathe. A sigh of relief a little bit, but you still have the Jets, Broncos, Colts again, Titans up next. But, the more you win, the more gaps you can place before yourself in separation to who's behind you. I think this is really big in regards to also holding on to the 3 seed in the AFC playoff picture. Whereas if you lose, there's a strong chance you can fall all the way down to 6 or maybe even 7, depending on how things shake out this Sunday, which is okay, right? But that means the following games after that, you have to win or split, right? The Broncos game is the only game, in my opinion, you can afford to lose for the remainder of this year, and maybe that Colts game in Indy later on in a few weeks. You can't afford to miss this game, flop against the Jets, flop against the Broncos, win against the Colts, or lose against the Titans at the end of the year. You just can't afford these things. I think 10 wins gets you in for sure, without question. 11 wins gets you into the playoffs. So you're looking at the Jaguars needing to string off at least 3 more wins on the schedule, and I think they definitely will, starting out this Sunday. So why is the message around this facility, around this team, being preached as each game being the biggest game in Jags history, right? Because I heard this a few weeks back, right? I don't listen to uh Boselli speak as much on the radio. Usually I think I'm working when he's on the station and whatnot, but he has been pretty much saying that every game since the beginning of the year has been the biggest game of Jaguars history. And a lot of people were like, oh, okay, well, this just could be coach speaking. When I first heard it, it had to be post, I think it was after the Texans game. No, the Chargers game. And I was like, there's all this cliche talk. But now I'm understanding, right? Because for us fans, who cares what we think? It's all about the message in the locker room, all right? The more you preach this mindset, the more you let this mindset breathe, and it goes on to others. Everyone understands how important these games in late November, December are for the remainder of the season. These are defining moments for a season, right? If you're playing meaningful football in November, late November, December, that means you're in good position, right? You're not worried about the draft. You're not worried about cap right now. You're not worried about off-season trades. You're worried about winning and taking control of what's placed in front of you. And I love this mindset now that I'm able to take a step back and realize that it's actually working, because the Jaguars are currently on a 3-game winning streak. Their streak can continue this week after beating the Colts, hopefully. And most importantly, it sets them up for what is the standard going forward in this team under Liam Cohen, James Gladstone, and Tony Boselli regime. Because next year, I expect the Jaguars to be in the same spot. The following year, I expect the Jaguars to be in the same spot. Like, you get what I'm saying right now? Like, I'm pretty much just emphasizing how important this mindset is, because before we didn't have this, right? You look back in 2023, or I'll start out with that year, right? We were 8-4 at this point in 2023. We had that unfortunate loss against the Bengals Monday Night Football that pretty much derailed the remainder of our season. Of course, I think we would have won that game if Trevor was playing, but Trevor got hurt late in that early fourth quarter. CJ Beathard stepped in. We almost could have won that game, but unfortunately, we got called for the holding on Anton Harrison after that big chunk play to Calvin Ridley that more than likely would have won this game with the run-in for Travis Etienne the following play. But games like that is what derailed our season, because once Trevor went down, he wasn't healthy. He played in that Browns game. He was obviously not healthy. The interceptions he was throwing. He played in that Ravens game. The offense could get nothing going in that matchup, right? That Buccaneers game, he threw too many turnovers. He had to even sit down at one point during that last stretch of games because he was that injured and not playing good football that Beth had to step in. And, of course, we beat the Panthers. But then to close out the season against the Titans, we flopped. I remember the message at that point in time after that season and throughout the duration of how things ended that year. A lot of players, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Calvin Ridley, I remember speaking to the press at that time saying that during the midst of that losing streak, it was too many people in that locker room looking for answers. No one had the answer. No one stepped up and had the answer. And I've said that about this Jaguars team to begin this year in their tough losses, in that Rams loss earlier this year, in that Texans debacle of a fourth quarter implosion. I said that there are enough players on this team. Our best players aren't stepping up when we need them. But I'm realizing that the mindset is by committee. It is team. It is team oriented. It is team. Everyone must buy into the mindset. We don't just need one guy to save us. We need the entire team to step up and play. We need the backups to step up and play. We need them to come in and take advantage of the opportunities. With no Trayvon Walker playing, what is BJ Green and Danny Strigo going to do? Right? With no Eric Armstead playing, what is Mason Smith, who hasn't played good at all, in my opinion, but Devon Hamilton, what are they going to do when the starters go down? The safety play, Andrew Wingard, Antonio Johnson has been playing good football. Antonio Johnson, I mean, Dewey's been up and down, but who's going to step in for Dewey this week because he may be out during this game for concussion? Will it be Juan Thornhill, who just signed a practice squad recently? Will he get pulled up, and can he step in and play meaningful football and help us contribute to a win? Because he has that experience, right? He's been a Chief. He's been a Brown, right? He's played in meaningful football when the Browns were, I think, going on a winning season at least. But I know for sure with the Chiefs, of course, right? So I love the mindset because this is the same mindset, in my opinion, that helped this team propel to the playoffs in 2022 when they were 4-8 at this point in the season. Strung off, 5 straight wins to close out the year? Counting the playoffs, 6 straight wins. They lost to the Lions. They got belt the ass against the Lions that year. And then they came out on the road in Tennessee, and that's what sparked their winning streak. They came out against the Dallas Cowboys and won in overtime in thrilling fashion. They came out against the Ravens and had a fourth quarter comeback in thrilling fashion. That team understood the mission that was in place before them. They weren't looking around for answers. Players stepped up. Trevor stepped up. The defense stepped up. Josh Hines-Allen at the time stepped up. Trayvon Walker stepped up as a rookie. Our corners are playing great football. Tyson was there. He was playing good. Darius Williams. So, and I can even count back to 2017. We all remember that year. They were 8-4 at this time too. It was a lot of similarities to these Jaguar teams at this point in their seasons when they made it to the playoffs or could have made it to the playoffs. They were 8-4 in 2017 at this point and finished 3-2 with huge wins over Indy, Seattle. That was the year that A.J. Bouye and Jalen Ramsey took over that damn game against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks that season. And, of course, Houston, 45-7 beatdown. That was the year we clinched the playoffs. I'm sorry, that's the year we clinched the AFC South. And, of course, made it to the postseason. I think at that point that year, I think we were fighting for the 2 seed at one point. And then, of course, we lost the Niners and Titans game. We ended up having a 3 seed. But nevertheless, though, that's what it takes. That is what it takes. So now we sit here in very familiar territory in the Trevor Lawrence era, right? I mean, we've been in this spot now 3 times. 3 times. And where we are finding ourselves playing meaningful football in the month of December. Must seize the opportunity, especially with this easier slate of games coming up. Colts, Jets, Broncos, Colts, Titans. I mean, I can easily see us going 3-2 in that slate of games. And that puts us at 11-6? Now to look forward to who we face off against in Indy. I've already spoke about the injuries, but this Colts team is spiraling a little bit in a sense, right? They, in comparison to us, in their last 5 games, they've gone 2-3, whereas us, we're going 4-1. We've had some close ones. We've also could have went 5-0 during the stretch and put the final nail in the Texans' coffin, but you know how we Jaguars do. But the Colts now sit here. I wouldn't say they're in desperation mode, man, but a loss this weekend could definitely put them way behind the 8 ball in regards to being down, I want to say 0-2 in the last 2 weeks to division opponents, where you had to play your division opponent twice again, I want to say. I think they have to play the Texans and Jaguars again to close out this year. If I'm not mistaken, let me look it up. I could be wrong, but I'm quite sure the Colts have to play both the Jags and Texans to close out this year again. And we all knew this Colts schedule was starting to get up. Yeah, they do. They got to play Seattle after this week, San Fran, Jags again, then the Texans. The Colts are in very, very questionable shape right now, man. They lose this game, it may go off the rails because I don't see them going on the road in Seattle and pulling off a victory after suffering 3 potential straight losses. It's going to be a tough one, I will say, man, because not only are we playing for a controlling moment in the AFC South? But we're also we have this lengthy winning streak hovering over our heads, and we all know all streaks must come to an end. And man, would it be very Jaguarish for the streak to come to an end this season? We've beat Indy in Jacksonville for 11 straight years. One of the more strange winning streaks I think the NFL has seen, especially versus a division opponent. I think the Chiefs had a huge winning streak over the Broncos pre Patrick Mahomes era that extended into the Patrick Mahomes era up until last year or 2 years ago when they lost to Russell Wilson. I want to say the Chiefs had beaten the Broncos at least. Man, I think it had gone at least about 10 years. I want to say no, 8 years, something like that. Right? They hadn't lost. They hadn't lost to the Broncos since the Peyton Manning era. You know, so in the game they lost that season was in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. For the first time, they lost to the Broncos, and of course, that was a streak that just had to come to an end. And the Colts could have had this streak in last year, right? I mean, the Jaguars went up big. The Joe Flacco led Colts offensively came back strong in the fourth quarter. We had to put them away with a game-winning field goal, pretty much, to win that game after, Trevor Lawrence, who I think is the Colt killer, right? How Peyton Manning was a Jaguar killer. Trevor Lawrence throughout his career has definitely been a Colt killer. He does not struggle against this Colts team whatsoever. He plays some of his best football. I think right now his stats say that he is 5-2 versus Indy, 11 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He's played spectacular football versus this Colts team since he stepped in as a Jaguars quarterback, which is really nice because, in years past, we used to get whooped by the Colts, man. Peyton Manning ruined my childhood. I can only count on my hands the amount of times we beat the Colts when Peyton Manning was over there wrecking havoc. One of the more memorable ones was when Fred Taylor and Maurice Jones-Drew had that prolific day on the ground in the all-black uniforms where Jack Del Rio was wearing a wearing a suit in broad daylight, a suit on the sidelines, like he was Lombardi or something like that. Vince Lombardi wearing a suit. There's no fedora, He had the suit and shades on, like he had his Sunday's best on, man. I want to know the lore behind why he did that. I want to see. I don't want to look it up now, of course, but I want to know the lore behind why he wore it that day, because that's pretty funny. But yeah, man, I mean, it's been a very long time, man. It's been a very up and down rivalry. For the last 11 years. I mean, they've pretty much been splitting. Sometimes the Jaguars have taken it twice in 1 year, but it's definitely been more of a split. And I think this is a big game. This is a really big game, man. So, could all things just point to the streak being too strong to upheld and we end up losing this game? I hope not. Right. But, at some point we will lose. And I just hope it's not this week, man. Maybe next year or just never. You know what I'm saying? We just have one of those strange streaks that just continue for the remainder of time, right? But I know the players don't care about that streak because a lot of those players have been around, but also a lot of them have not. This coaching staff wasn't around for sure. So, this is just a division game. And Liam, post Titans matchup, spoke about how important these division games are. It is divisional football, man. These games mean the most because this is how you seize control of your division. This is how you win your division. This is how you clinch your division. And this would be something for the Jaguars to clinch the AFC South for the second time in 5 years since Trevor Lawrence has been here. Should have been 3 times, but But yeah, man, this is really, really shaking up to be the biggest game in Jags history. Now, as for the Colts, like I said, the injury. Sauce Gardner's not playing. DeForest Bucker's not playing. There's a couple other guys on the injury report. I'm quite sure they will play. But most importantly, Sauce, DeForest, they're out. And Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, who's been having a bounce back type year and could be looking as if he's going to be the bridge gap franchise quarterback for the Colts for the foreseeable future, is dealing with a fractured fibula, or however it was going on with that fibula of his. And he played pretty serviceable against the best defense in football in Houston last week. They lost, of course, and they almost could have won that game given the fact that There may have been some sketchy calls due to the officiating and the field goals that were kicked or the extra points that were kicked. But he did play good, right? I mean, I thought that Colts offensive line did a really good job of holding him up. And he made some big time throws. Most importantly, I think Pierce had one of his better games of the season. Whereas JT is still chugging along. He had a big gain in the yards pickup via catch on the screen pass that I think he went for damn near 50, 60 yards on. But the rushing performances by him have slowed up, and the Jaguars have been arguably one of the better rush defenses in football. I think they currently sit at top 5 in stopping the run. I think Anthony Campanelli's done a really good job of emphasizing that on defense. If you're going to get beat by the pass, you're damn sure not going to get beat by the run, right? And the secondary has improved a bit within these last 3 weeks. But it's a tall task, man, because it's Colts offense, regardless of Daniel Jones being healthy or not. I mean, they're very explosive, right? Because they can just hand the ball off 25 plus times and just lean on JT and they can win this game. But I think the Jaguars have a bit more pride than that to allow that to happen, right? They're going to dare Daniel Jones to beat them. And at the end of the day, they're going to tip their cap to him if he does. And I'm okay with that because you stack the box, you load it up, and you make a handicapped quarterback beat you with his arm. And he's had struggles against that this year, right? I mean, he lost to the Texans having to beat the Texans with his arm. He lost to the Steelers having to beat them with his arm. He also lost to KC. And that was a game where I thought he played good as well. But, it was at one point where the Colts offense could do nothing. And it seemed as if Shane Steichen was trying to prove a point in that game instead of feeding JT the ball in the fourth quarter where they had those consecutive 3 and outs. They were relying on DJ to beat them in that game. And maybe they were trying to, just, hey, come playoff time, we're going to need you. I guess like a coaching system. I mean, a coaching lesson or whatever like that. But I think that was very idiotic of them because it cost them that game as well. So I definitely expect a heavy dose of JT in this matchup. But that fits to our strengths. So it's all about the Jaguars just playing up to par and stopping the run and getting the job done and stopping this offense and making them one-dimensional. As for this Jaguars offense, though, I expect ETN to have himself a better game. That Titans defensive front was very tough to run up against. This Colts defensive front is really good, but it doesn't have DeForest Buckner up front, right? And I think DeForest Buckner has definitely caused us a lot of havoc when we faced him in years past. So not having him out there is big, right? Still got to worry about Latu, Grover Stewart, and so on and so forth. But, Zaire Franklin, of course, but, this Colts defense has been it's been pretty solid this year, but not having your 2 best players on the team in a crucial game is very important. So how would this Jaguars offense look? Like I said, I think ETN plays big. I think Jacoby Myers continues his impact on this team, right? He's been an excellent addition. And I think without question, the Jacoby Myers trade saved the decision-making of drafting Travis Hunter and trading away your capital because this offense was very up and down, trying to figure out who they're going to run through in regards to Travis or BTJ, right? But now with Travis going down to an injury, unfortunately, BTJ going down to an injury, unfortunately, you were able to go out there and trade for a receiver in Jacoby Myers, Parker Washington as they continue to develop, and also you had guys like Brandon Strange come back into the lineup, and now you're seeing who is the wide receiver 1 currently in this offense, and it is Jacoby Myers. And that's okay. And I think James Gladstone understands that. And we'll talk about how this offense looks in the offseason going forward. But I think for right now, it is best for this offense to go through Myers. Parker went down with a hip injury. Hopefully, he will be playing in this game. Even so, if he's not, you still got BTJ, who I expect to have himself a better game here, right? Not having such a demanding role. You're going to be able to slide Myers into the slot, which he is naturally more comfortable in and arguably his best at. And then you bring back Dimey Brown after having to sit down as a healthy scratch. Hopefully that's a wake-up call for him. And we all know last year Dimey Brown played his best football during the stretch of games where the Commanders were going for a playoff spot. And, of course, when they had that win over the Lions on the road in the, second round of the playoffs, he had a big-time performance. So we're going to need these receivers to step up big time regardless of the fact, but they have to continue to put these games together, stack them together. They're playing better football without question. They're catching the football without question. And guess who's playing better football in result of that? Trevor Lawrence. The only bad we've seen from Trevor Lawrence so far in this stretch of games that we've seen um, Jacoby Myers as a full-time participant in this offense has been because of Trevor himself just doing dumb stuff, right? We can't blame the drops no more. We can't blame the receivers running wrong routes. When this offense is clicking, when the players are playing better, Trevor plays better. And that's what we're seeing, right? We saw it in the crunch time moments in that Cardinals game. Players were catching the football. Trevor was making big time throws. They were scoring points and they won. You know, they arguably could have won early in overtime if Tim Patrick would have turned his head around on that wheel concept they ran, or what they called I'll call it a wheel concept, but it's a better word, clear out concept, right? Then you saw it against that Titans team where I thought the Titans defense was going to pose a big threat to him offensively, but then again, it's the Titans. They're only a one-win team, and I thought they dominated that game in that first half without question. And Trevor was making big-time throws and had all day to throw in the pocket, going up against a underrated Texans front, right? I mean, you have Jeffrey Simmons, Devondre Sweat, so on and so forth. So, you know, I thought he played well. So I expect to see that against this Colts team, where he's dominated throughout his career so far. So I expect Trevor to have another big game this upcoming Sunday. The weather may not present itself, of course, because it's going to be heavy rains. It may not actually rain during the game, but it's going to be heavy rains before. And I'm assuming it's going to be heavy rains within this matchup. Leaning on the running attack, and of course, just, you know, playing that style of football that they've already been able to grow accustomed to, and leaning on Etienne and Tootin. I think this is a game where Liam Cohen has to continue to showcase that his improvements from a coaching standpoint in being able to be aggressive in key moments and also not aggressive in certain moments, right? I'm not really sure of this clock management heading into that second half. It's still a bit shaky in my opinion. But nevertheless, though, these are games where you have to play and coach your best. And I think Liam would definitely do that because his message has been heard by these players. They believe in him. They trust him. They trust his philosophies. They trust his message, and it's paying off. I expect the Jaguars to win. I really do. I mean, you're looking at Andrew Wingard probably not being in this matchup. I expect Parker Trayvon to play. You're going to have, you know, I know guys like Foy and Devin were in limited action in the pennies, so on and so forth, but I expect them to play. I expect Eric Armstead to be back out there with a club on, right? He didn't play in that Titans game, but I expect him to play. I think this Jaguars team is going to be at full strength, at least missing probably like one or two players in this coach matchup. You may even see someone like Juan Thornhill coming in off the practice squad to step in, but I'm a big believer in the Jaguars team in this game, man. I don't know if it's because of the streak that's, you know, hovering over this situation right now, man, but I believe the Jaguars team will win. And I think they win. I don't want to give a prediction, but I don't want to say convincingly either, but I think they make a statement in this game because no one's talking about them right now, man. Everyone's talking about everyone else in the AFC South, but the Jaguars. It's like this team is the third seed right now. How can that be ignored? Is it the disrespect that the Jaguars are facing because they're the Jaguars, right? Is it the Jaguar tax? Is it that? Because I'm not sure why the Jaguars are not being talked about enough. I've been saying it in my group chats. I've been saying on the timeline, if you follow me on Twitter, this AFC playoff picture in general is filled with a bunch of parity right now, and uncertainty, and a lot of inexperience. You're going to go into the playoffs more than likely if things were to remain the same right now with Bo Nix, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert being the most experienced quarterbacks in this playoff push, and Daniel Jones. Those are your experienced quarterbacks in this playoff push. Whereas Trevor, funny enough, and Josh Allen have been the only quarterbacks in this current, you know, pool of teams to make it past the first round. Granted, you're going to have teams to overcome. The Patriots, I'm quite sure they're going to make it to the second round because they're going to be the 1 seed more than likely. You know, you would think Bo Nix can grab at least 1, right? Because they're the 2 seed and they're going to have a favorable matchup, maybe. You know, and of course the winner of the AFC North, right? Rather for Lamar or Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. So they're going to have some experience there, but you don't trust those teams because outside of their quarterback play, they're not good, right? I mean, they're not good at all, in my opinion. You could see, you know, one of them get put in the dirt this week, rather if it's the Ravens or Steelers. I think whoever wins that matchup this week is going to seize control of the AFC North picture. So you're looking at a lot of parity and experience in this playoff push. No Patrick Mahomes. So I think this, without question, I think, well, not really the Jaguars primarily, but I think all teams, all 7 teams that make it should feel, optimistic of potentially getting to the AFC Championship game because it all depends on matchups, right? I think the Jaguars match up really well against the Chargers. I think they match up well against the Colts. We'll see, but I think they match up well against the Colts. I think they match up well against the Ravens. The only team I'm really scared of in this AFC playoff picture due to the defense is the Texans if they make it, and the Broncos. Everyone else, I'm cool. Line it up. Line it up. So we'll see. That's later down the road. We got to take it one game at a time. I have to stay in the moment, of course, right? Because the last time I was speaking like this, the Jaguars folded. But I'm just a fan at the end of the day, right? I don't play these games. I'm just doing my job as a fan and as a media representative or a content creator, however you want to say it, because, I believe my team will make it. And honestly, I think they can make it to the conference championship game, at least if all things click the right way. But I don't have any more to say. I don't, man. I'm just excited. The weather's going to be pretty terrible, but this is still going to be a great game to watch, an important game to watch. And also, the winner of this game can really lock themselves in to at least clinching that 3rd seed in the AFC playoff picture. So other important games on this week as well. You're going to have the Texans and Chiefs. You're going to have Ravens and Steelers. I've already mentioned that. You're going to have Bengals and Bills, right? That's going to be a big game for the Bengals and keep their playoff hopes alive, right? But we'll see. We'll see, man. The AFC is shaking up very interesting to end out this year. But anyways, I thank y'all so much for tapping in. If you're not already subscribed to the podcast, please do. You hit that button down below. And also comment down your thoughts on the AFC playoff picture, your thoughts on the Jaguars going forward into a potential playoff run, and whatever else you want to speak on in the comment section. Please like this video. Thank y'all for tapping in, and I appreciate y'all so much. I'll be back to talk more about our Jags because, man, without question, this is the biggest game in Jags history. Until next time, that is a wrap.